Well, welcome, Simon Calnan, to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It looks really nice that, sitting with a t-shirt and shorts. I'm like in cold Sweden here. So
yeah, it's been a nice shift. But I mean, normally we'll be in Canada for the last, me personally, the last 10, 15 years or so. So it's the winters were always pretty chilly there. So it's been quite nice having 31 degrees, I think it probably is at the minute.
Oh, sounds amazing. Like, does the cold bother you at all? Or are you quite warm?
Well, I grew up in the UK, so it's not the hottest country in the world. So I'm not too bothered by the cold. I used to love it. Like I basically snowboarded a lot and was always chasing the snow. So I was very keen on the snow. Then when my daughter was born, we spent less time in the mountains, and then after that point forward, we kind of started to shift a little bit towards it'd be quite nice to live somewhere a bit warmer. And then here we go. The world enabled us to do that at the moment, so that's great.
Yeah, I'm always thinking that I'm gonna also like move somewhere warm because it's kind of cold here, but it is what it is, and I do enjoy living here too, so that's fine.
Yeah. There's pros and cons to both. Like it's there's bits I miss about the snow and ice skating and those sorts of things, but then it's also being in so much sunlight is really great, and being by the ocean for me is really, really healing. So that for me is really special. So
yeah. Oh, the ocean. I totally agree with you there. So, but let's just start, like, speaking of, because you mentioned the UK and that's where you were born, if I'm not mistaken. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up and what that was like, and then sort of leading into your sort of chronic illness that you had? And
for sure. Yeah,
it's a long story, I know, but just like take it from the start and we'll see where we go.
Totally, we'll go wherever you want to go. So I was born in the UK, in the southeast, in a place called Essex, which is not too far from London. Just normal kind of life, really. That was me. Just pretty, I'd say I would be classed as quite a sensitive child, I guess would be my demeanor. And then just lived there, had fun, just lived life basically. I didn't have had a very loving parents. It was just I don't know, it was a nice upbringing, nothing sort of very unique or sort of different. It was just a regular kind of life from my perspective. Around about 10, 11 years old, I started racing like motorcycles, and that had a big shift in my life. So I had, from about 10 to 20, that's mostly my life was really focused around motorcycle racing and stuff like that. So I got a lot of injuries through that, and there was a lot of kind of healing and learning through that process of different healing modalities and kind of how conventional medicine works and how kind of alternative medicines at the time could work when I was kind of healing bones and these sorts of things. So that kind of opened my mind a bit to kind of healing and pain and sort of the suffering kind of side of life, but also the wonders of kind of pushing yourself and kind of expanding as well. So I did that for a long time. And then when I was about 20, I had a virus, Epstein-Barr virus, basically. And after that, I had this chronic fatigue syndrome, and it was just a snowball effect of illnesses and things always going wrong. I was always very tired. I was constantly having these viral problems. And we tried the kind of conventional medicine, and that really didn't help a lot. It was, it was all well-meaning and kind of, they're there to try and help, but they just didn't know what to do with it. I think a lot of it, they think, is just in your mind, and that you're just thinking it up. But I was just exhausted all the time and constantly sick with all these different things. So we kept going to different specialists and different people, and over that time I started to get some sort of resentment actually to kind of Western kind of medicine, because there was a lot of pain involved in everything I was involved with that, and it didn't really progress very far. It helped me a lot with injuries like broken bones, but when it came to this kind of viral mess that I kind of was kind of living with, they didn't really have any answers for that. So we really kind of went all these different places, and I went through a couple of kind of, I guess you class them as medical malpractices that kind of made me extremely ill, that kind of put me in right back into hospital. And around 24, I'd had enough. I just said to my dad, I said, I can't do this anymore. And I started to travel.
How many years had you been feeling that way with the virus?
So that's, I was about 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
So when I hit kind of 24, 25, it was it had been enough time, and I'd given up drinking. I didn't go out with friends like I used to. I didn't do sports like I used to. So all these things kind of that you really do as a 20-year-old. I kind of, any jobs I had kind of dropped away. I kind of, my parents were kind of very mothering towards me, I guess. So I kind of was starting to become an adult, and then kind of almost went back into childhood again. It was kind of an unusual experience, but you know, it was great. I had a great connection with my parents, so I was quite lucky in that regards. But yeah, very confusing. It was really troubling mentally to kind of feel like you were losing your health, as it were, especially as a younger person. And by all means, there's many people have had much worse situations than myself, but just my own personal perception of it was pretty tough. So yeah, so then at 24, 25, I decided to travel. And what I found is that when I traveled and got away from the medical system, is actually I improved my health. So I started to feel better because I wasn't thinking about being sick all the time. And I started to realize a little bit about, wow, like my mental state and like my belief in being ill is basically perpetuating this, and it's not really helping it. And I kind of, that I left it after that. I kind of realized that was a shift, and that maybe I would just travel, and that was what my life would be. And that's what I did. I just kind of traveled and moderated what I did so that I didn't kind of overdo things, but I was able to do a lot of sport. Like it was quite amazing that I had this post-viral fatigue, but when I did things that were very joyful and I had a lot of passion for, it energized me, and actually my health would kind of balance or kind of improve. So I thought, well, this is my life. That's what I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
that was it for a long time. It traveled me around the world kind of doing that sort of stuff, which was pretty amazing. So
It's quite interesting that you say, like, when you do something that really raises your vibration, how you got out of that, like you weren't feeling the pain so much anymore. Because, like, sometimes when I sit in meditation, and I can be having, sometimes I get pains in my arm, and I can be sitting in meditation and just really, well, obviously raising my vibration as I'm sitting there, and
yeah,
the pain just goes away. And it's remarkable how that happens, because it's like, where do I mean, it can't just disappear, you know. It's kind of
yeah.
odd that way. But I know that you work a lot with that sort of thing. So what sort of led you from that and then into like using these other, what other things do you use? Like if we
Yeah. So yeah, so there was some more steps then. So I kind of met my wife, and we kind of went down sort of that path, got married, and I got a regular job and kind of became more of a regular human. I was kind of working a job, and I had no holidays, where I was almost constantly on a holiday prior. And then yeah, I started working, and I kind of went on a career route, and I ended up in a very good, well-paying job for a big luxury car brand, and everything was kind of great. And then one day, and it was around about 2012, I just woke up and I said, you know what? I don't want to do this job anymore. I want to help people and heal people. And I think that's something that would actually give me more purpose, and that I would actually kind of maybe become even more healthy by kind of helping others. So I decided to go into osteopathy. So that's what I went into. I kind of had this vision of maybe becoming a doctor at 36, and I just went full bore into that, and it was amazing. Had the most incredible time for about a year and a bit. And then when my daughter was about 2 years old, I woke up one morning. I would get up about 6 and then go study for a few hours. And 7:30, I grabbed her and I picked her up, wrapped her in a blanket, and I started to walk down the stairs, and I slipped on the top step, and both my feet went out. And because she was in my arms, I didn't put my arms down, and I landed right in my spine. Had massive spinal injuries immediately. I just kind of slid down the stairs, kind of holding on to her in excruciating pain. And within about 3 months of that, I was, well, other than I couldn't really barely move, but I had a massive mental breakdown as well. Like I was feeling suicidal, and I couldn't sleep, and it was constantly having anxiety, PTSD, so many different mental things. And I tried regular doctors again, and that was like absolutely no use. They just wanted to put me on antidepressants. So I kind of left there, and I found a functional doctor, which was extremely expensive. Like it cost fortunes to go there. And that was a real strain for us. But he was kind of opening my eyes to kind of different modalities of healing that I wasn't aware of. That
was
some
it
of it
called a functional doctor? Sorry for interrupting you there.
Yeah, functional doctor. So basically, he was a medically trained doctor, but then he also did stuff like medical acupuncture, and he was also into like, also he was even into sort of spirituality and stuff. That he had this whole program that was around healing the whole person, not just one element. And depending on when people come there, depending on what they're exhibiting, that he would try different things. But a big part of it was massive doses of things like vitamin C and So if you were low on any sort of vitamins, they test all your levels of everything, and then they would pump you full of stuff to build it all back up. So all of my cortisol pretty much gone from my body, had no salt left in me. My neurotransmitters had almost kind of, most of those are completely depleted. So I was really just, my body was kind of dying off at that time. And a lot of this was fear and pain that was actually creating this experience that I was having, but I didn't know how to get out of it because I had this mental space of kind of fear and pain, and it was a really troubling time, to say the least. He also mentioned stuff about meditation, and I went on a brain scan while I was there, and they noticed that I'd had lots of hits to the head. So they said, oh, you've got evidence of brain damage as well from probably the years of kind of motorbikes and snowboarding and these things. And so I started working a lot with like deep breathing. That was the first thing they ever did. I said, I'm having panic attacks and I feel suicidal. What do I do? And the guy said, just breathe for 30 minutes deeply. So I did. And I felt better afterwards. And I said, oh, this is incredible. I feel better doing this than I have done a lot of my life. Whenever I felt stressed, I didn't know what to do. So I started just deep breathing all day long. I would do breathing for hours and hours and hours. Half an hour of it, I'd take 10 minutes break, then I go back to it. And I kind of go through these waves of like feeling suicidal to feeling okay. And that was my life. And it kind of carried on like that for quite a while until the doctor he said, I don't know what to do with you, because every time I give you something to kind of fix you, you have a really strong reaction within your body, because I was so sensitive to everything. So we were also running out of money. So I kind of said, I can't keep coming to you, or maybe I'll go to you again in the future. I kept going to a psychologist, and then that ran out of space, and that kind of felt like it was almost re-traumatizing. And then so I kind of sat at home one day and I said, man, you've got no one to support you anymore. You're done. Like you're running out of money. You've got no one to help heal you anymore. What are you going to do? And I said, something just in me just said, just go meditate. So I would just meditate for a long time every day. Hours a day I would spend meditating, breath work, feeling my heart, and just trying to connect with love and appreciation and gratitude. And I really started to feel shifts and stabilizing, and I started to gently kind of improve. And then I hit this stage where I kind of was like, you know what, Simon, you may never repair from this. You may spend the rest of your life sitting in this chair looking out of a window. And I fought that so hard for a while. And then one day I said, I give up. I'm not going to fight it anymore. Just accept that this might be your life. Accept that it's okay, you're alive. You're going to get to witness your daughter you're going to see her growing up. You're going to spend time with your wife for as long as this goes on for. And when it ends, that's when it ends. And as soon as I had that kind of letting go, again, I had a bit more of a shift in healing. And it started to really open my mind up to like, hey, when I kind of gave up fighting and when I kind of let go, I started to heal. So what is this? And kind of when I meditated, I would get these kind of thoughts and stuff that came in about, they were all very spiritual stuff. And it was, I would kind of see visions of it. I don't know, they look like aliens to me and all sorts of different things. And they would all kind of be speaking to me. And I was like, man, you are going, my perception was you're going a bit mad, basically. But I said, it's okay. I don't have to tell anyone. I'll just keep doing this. And then I started connecting with some psychics. And I never had been to psychics before or anything. And what I found is that the first one I ever went to is when I walked in and sat down, she goes, I just want to let you know that you're completely normal. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, you're seeing lots of weird stuff, right? And you're seeing like demons and all these different things. And I said, yeah. She goes, that's normal. She goes, I grew up, my whole life's been like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And she goes, and I said, I have panic attacks and I feel stuff. She goes, that's okay. It's going to pass. You'll be okay in the future. And just those words. And there was just something within the way that she said them, this kind of energy that came with it, that I was just like, wow, this is really healing. And that was when I really started to get into kind of spirituality through my heart. And the more I spent time sitting in my heart, the more I kind of had these visions and kind of connections to something much bigger than myself. And it was still kind of this up and down process of like big points of euphoria and then big, massive, like manic kind of depressions, and then back up and down. And lots of times where I thought I'm never going to make it through this. And then times when I was like, man, I'm going to be an Olympic star or something. I was just this weird journey of like, it felt quite mad, but at the same time, quite sort of so loving and stuff. And then one day I would have panic attacks every night. Like when I went to sleep, like anytime I tried to sleep, I'd have these massive panic attacks. And one night I was just having it. I went downstairs because I didn't want to wake my wife and daughter, and I was just bawling my eyes out and just crying, and I was just begging. I was like, someone please just help me. And actually I feel a lot of emotion now, even just talking about this. And then it just went on for a while until I just had this massive beam of light that just kind of went through my whole body, and every single symptom within me disappeared. And I felt just joy and love for the world like I've never felt before in my life. It was so serene. I just was flooding tears of kind of just love and joy. And in that moment, there's something much bigger than me. And I said that whatever people do for healing, for some reason, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to try and help people through this connection to whatever this is, spirit or God or whatever it was. And that's kind of my journey. I started building pyramids and sitting in pyramids, and I got really obsessed with kind of like anything to do with energy. So I built a really big pyramid in my house, and I would lie in it. And what I found is that was incredibly healing. So I started manufacturing pyramids and trying to sell them to people, and telling lots of people about that stuff. And I started reading lots of channeled books about pyramids and different beings and stuff. And that just kind of was what I did. I didn't tell anyone about it, but I just was consumed with all of this information, and it kept coming so easily. The more I kind of looked into kind of these alternative healing modalities, and more of this stuff just kept coming to me, and I was just this vacuum of like, I was just vacuuming information on nonstop. And the more I did, the more I started to heal. And then at some point, I kind of realized that, you could help some other people with this. So that became my goal, that one day I would get well enough that I could help someone else. And that one day someone doesn't have to go through exactly the same stuff that I did. They don't have to do 5 years of this. They could maybe get it done in a year. That was kind of my goal. And that's what kept dragging me through. Every day I had like a really rough day, I said, one day you're going to help someone with this. And then boom, I'd have another shift, and then it would that's what happened. And that's kind of been my life. And then for the last year and a bit, it kind of really stabilized to the point where I started to feel very confident, and I started speaking to groups of people, and reaching people across the internet, all sorts of different stuff. And yeah, that's kind of the whole long story. There's lots more in it, but that's kind of where I am now. So
Yeah, I just got goosebumps when you mentioned the whole sort of light from above, like filling your whole body. And, I just felt goosebumps on my whole body when you said that, because it's just, wow, it's just, it's so amazing how you go through a journey like that, and how it's like, would you say, like, do you believe that was like in your soul contract to come here and have to go through that in order to help other people? Or how do you see it? Do you see it like
yeah, I had a big belief in that for a long time, and that was really helpful for me to make sense of everything that's going on. So when I was really like, when I was kind of like, when you're losing it and you're ready to give up, I was like, there's a reason you did this. You did this so that you could help people, and you did this. So that was enough for me. Like, I always had this feeling of wanting to help people, and it hit one of my values, that if I can help people, then that's okay. And it allowed me to sit in that space. But the more I've kind of progressed now, I believe that we do come in with these ideals of what we would like to do as a soul within a human experience. And I do know that there are certain things that come along the journey that will kind of influence this and stuff. But what I'm really seeing now is that, especially the more I've integrated more shadow, is that we really have a lot of control about how we experience life. That even if things have been put in our ways, that you don't actually even have to really go through those if you don't want to. So, and that's kind of a little bit of what I teach people now, is that what I saw a lot in the spiritual community, because I came from a very non-spiritual, there was no even church or anything for me. So I went from that to incredibly in depth into kind of all sorts of beings from different planets, and I was sitting on both sides of the fence, and I kind of sat there at the same time, and I saw lots of benefits to spirituality, but I also saw a lot of hindrances and a lot of giving power away. I saw a lot of spiritual people that I spoke to that were people who've been doing this for many years, that they were kind of, I could see that they were disempowered by this fact that, like, oh, like, this is my journey, and everything's going to be tough for me because that's what I chose. And part of me just said, no, I'm not going to choose that. Like, I know that I'm going to have rough things that do teach me lessons, but I'm not going to believe that somehow something else has power over me and that it's going to dictate everything that happens through life. And so I kind of, it's a bit of a duality. Like, I believe that is part of life, but at the same time, I also believe that we are so strong and so empowered once we realize it, that we don't have to wait for someone to save us, and we don't have to wait for someone to be tough or mean to us. We don't have to give ourselves up to be worthy. We can be whole and basically spirit or God, whatever you want to call it, on earth as a human being. And that kind of was the shift I changed to. I wanted to become more of that experience on earth, and just to kind of exemplify that, and hopefully other people could see that and ease their own suffering through that journey. It's not the only way to be here on this planet, and I don't say it's the be all end all, but it's just the way that I find the most alignment with right now, anyway, for sure. So
yeah, well, it sounds like you really do help a lot of people through, and especially through what you do. Now, I have to ask the whole, because it sounded so interesting, the whole, is it Egyptian something something, like with the pyramid thing?
yeah.
Like how does that work? Like tell us about that.
Yeah, so I don't know where the Egyptian thing came from. Just one day while I was kind of I would only sleep like a few hours a day with a sleeping pill at the time. So the rest of the time my mind was very busy. But what I found is that when I was learning stuff is that I had less anxiety. So I basically would read books all day long or read stuff on the internet. And I kept getting really drawn to Egypt. And I never had in my life been interested in anything to do with Egypt. It didn't interest me in whatsoever. But now I was obsessed with pyramids, and I didn't know why. So I started wondering, well, why did they put these pyramids on the earth? Like, it's not just some sort of ornament. There must be, my practical side of me is like, there was a purpose for this. There must have been a reason. So I started really diving into that and the structures of it, and how I'd had some knowledge of engineering background. So I kind of started to really start thinking about what could the design do? Like, how could that affect energy? And I read for a long time, and there's all these different stories. And I said, well, the only way you're going to find out is if you build one. So I was like, okay, well, I'll build a pyramid. So I built them out of like plastic and paper, and then I started making metal ones. And then I actually got some engineers to design these basically like big pieces of machined billet aluminium that were coated in copper and gold. And I put pipes in them, and I started lying in them, and I started meditating in them. And I was just, I'm going to be a medical experiment for myself. And I just started to see what it did for me. And what I found is that times when I was exhausted and that I didn't have I didn't believe that I had the energy to kind of meditate to get through maybe some sort of troubling thing that I was going through in that moment, is that I could sit in this pyramid for half an hour and I could come out and I felt calm. And it wouldn't last forever, but it basically was like this haven for me, that when I was really like losing control, is I could just go lie in that space, and I would just have this serene feeling of kind of just calmness that would just flow through my body. And after a while, I started inviting other people to go in it, and I was getting the same thing, that they would say, yeah, I just feel kind of calmer, and I don't know why. And I had a really busy mind, and now my mind's not busy. And then I started looking at like Egyptian people, and I saw that when you saw these postures that they were holding, that sometimes they had something in their hands and they looked like scrolls. So I started to ask, like, what are these scrolls? And people like, oh, they're scrolls. They do nothing. And I said, there's no way they do nothing. No one carves stuff into granite or whatever it is when it's nothing. So I found a place in Russia, and they sold these Egyptian healing rods. And they're these copper rods, and they have different metal filings and crystals and stuff in them. And I started using those while I was in the pyramid, and then the stuff started to really shift in me within. Then, like, I had some really big kind of awakenings and massive kind of downloads of information and stuff. And so I was like, man, this is what they used. From my perspective, I was like, they must have used this for some sort of communication device or energy healing. I didn't really know for sure at the time. But what I noticed is that I could hold these rods and lie in this pyramid, and I started to heal. So I said, I don't even need to know. I'm just going to do this daily. And then as I did it, more and more information would come. Like, I'd randomly be reading something on the internet, and I'd read something else about rods and something else about this type of crystal and the shapes of pyramids and different people around the world that are creating pyramids. And it just was a bit of a kind of just a journey of diving into that world, and really interesting. It gave me a lot of interest in the world, and it gave me a lot of interest in history and the planet, which I didn't really have before. I was just kind of living in the moment. And yeah, so that's kind of what led me that way. And yeah, and I still have big interest. We just got back from Mexico. I went there and saw the pyramids in Chichen Itza.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Yeah. The one they have there actually is 3 pyramids. It's one pyramid inside another pyramid.
Oh, wow.
And
Cool.
you can't go in it, but it's kind of a block, so it goes down in like squares, like it comes down. And if you stand in front of it and clap, the sound rebounds at you. So you clap, and it sounds almost like a bullet comes back. and just the fact that this was designed like so many hundreds of years ago, and that they don't even know really why it's doing this stuff, and it's just so, to me it's just so amazing that
It is incredibly fascinating. And
yeah
I have heard a little bit about this kind of thing before, but not really spoken to anyone about it. So thank you for that.
yeah
And it
yeah
just, it makes me really want to have one myself. So I can
yeah
meditate like in a pyramid just to see how it, if it would help, because that would be really cool.
100% it does. And you can make them out of I was really obsessed with like gold and stuff, and copper,
Hmm.
but the more I've learned is actually you can make them out of wood, and they work really well out of natural products. So wood,
Mm.
even plastic, funnily enough, works better than base metals like copper. So if you have plastic piping, you can make one. If you have wood, you can make it into a pyramid shape. And I recommend people to lie in there and see what your experience is, and go with an open mind and see what you feel and what it feels like. And yeah, I think life is, that's the amazing part of life, is that, and now not knowing, actually the amazing thing is that you can experience these things as a human, and you can see how it feels to you in this moment,
Mm.
like
Yeah,
maybe
and
in
I,
a
I
past life.
suppose it's different for everyone as well, like what kind of things work and what don't work. You
100%. Yeah,
you being very energy sensitive, you said as a child as well.
yeah.
Did you feel like you like got an understanding from your parents that could they handle you being sensitive, if you know what I mean? Because I'm asking because I'm a sensitive myself, and
Mhm.
it wasn't always easy, so sometimes it was just like, oh, you're just too sensitive. And it took me like I think I was over 30 before I realized that, oh, it's not just my own, I'm not just feeling my own emotions, I'm feeling
Yeah,
everyone else's too. That's why I'm so emotional. you
yeah,
know
that's it. And my parents, they're just not weren't aware of that, and most parents aren't, sorry. And uh, so I had quite, and my mum's she's a very emotional, passionate person, and my dad is kind of the opposite, actually. He is emotional in his own way, but
Mm.
not in kind of a crying or kind of like that way of doing stuff. He's a very kind of very male, masculine guy, really loving and incredible. Both of them are very amazing. But yeah, I think it was tough for them to have a child that was so sensitive. And I had the same experience with my own daughter. I was just prepared because I was aware of it. But watching like the most menial kind of things, like an insect that has kind of passed away on the side of the road, and her bawling her eyes out, and I kind of remembered feeling the same way as a child. And and I can see from my parents' perspective that would be really tough, because you like, it's just an ant. Like, why are you upset, and why are you bawling your eyes out, and why
Yeah.
is this the end of the world? And they don't understand. And it's yeah, it is tough. And I actually, I just wrote a children's book actually a week ago, and some of that is to help children and parents who are kind of sensitive, and that it's to give them tools to be able to deal with this emotions and stuff, because it's through no fault of the parents. They just are not aware, and if you're not aware and you haven't experienced something, you can't know it.
Yeah,
So
I think
yeah,
that's really beautiful that you've written a book about it, because it's like you say, yeah, they don't really understand how to handle it, or how
no,
to handle the person who's like that. And it can be quite like I think a lot of people want their children also to like grow up and be able to live in this
yeah,
world, and it's
yeah,
can be quite harsh reality. So they're
yeah,
like, oh God, you need to toughen up. Like, how are you going to survive? So I think it's really good that you've written a book about it, because I think it's really needed. And especially now, because I think that there are so many children born, like more and more children are born with these
yeah.
sensitive,
They are,
sensitive sort of.
yeah.
So yeah, that's
They're
really
coming
good.
through. A lot of them are coming through now with more gifts as well. Like, they're
Mm.
being born with kind of more intuitive gifts, and parents now are definitely more open to it. So they're kind of allowing these gifts to, either they're just allowing them, or they're not kind of crushing them anymore. A lot of the
Mm.
time, they're allowing them to be, and some of them are actually trying to help them flourish those gifts. And um, so I think there's a real shift going on the planet, and um, yeah,
Yeah,
it's something that I feel quite passionate about, actually. So
let's talk a little bit about that. With the
yeah.
whole pandemic, like, how do you see? Why do you think that happened? Like, from your point of view, or from what you've channeled, or
Yeah,
what is
so I
that
mean,
teaching us?
Yeah, so it's such a there's so many landmines on this subject, but
Yeah.
basically, as a human, from my knowledge and my knowing at the moment, which could change in the future, but we basically brought this on ourselves. And there's going to be people that say, well, no, I've been loving my whole life and I'm kind to everybody and all I do is help everybody, so why did I attract it? Well, you're not just one person. We're part of a collective.
Mhm.
Like, as a bunch of souls, we all came here at the same time and we're all connected as one, but we all have our own unique kind of personalities almost. And so it's almost like I see it as, I try and explain to people, like a line of energy and these little bumps that go across it, like almost like the heartbeat line. And these little bumps they're connected to the line, but they're kind of like a personality. They're another little soul. And we're all on that line, and we're all these different souls, and some are big bumps and some are small bumps and some are kind of twisty. And so they're all different. So as a whole, we brought all of this onto ourselves. But what it has done at the moment is, I believe that this is probably the fastest descending planet ever at the moment, as far as consciousness goes. But it was pretty low consciousness. I mean, there was a lot of war. There's a lot of suffering and stuff on this planet. There's a lot of really shadowy stuff that is starting to come to light. And as much as people don't want to see that, that is actually kind of part of this awakening process. So there is really a divine process to everything that's going on, and it is helping people to wake up. But humans as a whole, we're really stubborn, and we generally don't change until something gets really bad. And that's what we're seeing, is that stuff doesn't shift with people until it gets really bad. They're really happy to be comfortable. Like, they're okay. They're kind of happy being unhappy as long as it kind of stays in that place.
Mhm.
And then they don't generally want to shift. And I was one of those too, right? Like, it took a really big accident for me to kind of connect with spirit, because I wasn't aware of it. And that's what it took. It took me to basically get to the point of dying to connect and then bring that back with me. And really, that's what's happening on the planet. Like, I believe, my perception and my belief is that we are all kind of spiritual beings, and that our soul's goal is to realize that within a human lifetime.
Mhm.
And so, and if we can see with people, if they don't shift until something really severe happens, we're kind of, if you look at it from this perspective, you can see that this is a melting pot that would be a great catalyst to wake up a lot of people and to connect a lot of people to spirit. Because a lot of the stuff we've been told is very confusing. Because we get stuck in the mind. A lot of humans are stuck in the mind space, and this kind of polarity of kind of right and wrong, left and right. And usually what happens when you have a massive breakdown or a really, like, a big major life transition, is that you give up on your brain. You usually just give up. You just go, I don't care anymore. I don't want to think anymore. I'm giving up. And when you give up thought, you usually connect with spirit and your heart, and this kind of overwhelming love comes out of you. And then you're like, whoa, what's going on? Like, where's all this coming from? And for some lucky people, they realize that, man, my thinking and stuff is actually what's stopping me from connecting with my heart and from something bigger than myself. And so that's what my perspective is on what's going on. It doesn't mean that I'm sitting here loving it and I have all of the same emotions. I feel the planet's emotions. That part of my gift is to feel consciousness, the emotions of the consciousness of the whole planet. And it's
Mhm.
not pleasant. I have to process a lot of other people's shadow at times, and a lot of
Yeah,
my
how
own.
how does Gaia feel about this? Or the
Well,
collective, or yeah.
there's a lot of people don't want it, and
Mm.
unfortunately, when you don't want something, we usually get more of it.
Yeah.
And it's this is where it's so tough. Like, and we have so many people at different places as well at the same time. There's some that are completely, their heads buried in the sand, and that's okay, because I understand what it's like to feel fear and not wanting to kind of see some of this stuff. You got other people that are trying to scream at everyone, this, you need to see all this, and what's wrong with you, why can't you see it? And then you got other people that are kind of more in a neutral space, that are probably more of the masterful people on the planet maybe. And some of them are kind of looking at stuff and they're not really making a big deal of it. And we have all of these people all at once. And somehow all of these people need to kind of get on somehow. We seem
Yeah.
to need to allow people to be a person that puts their head in sand, to allow someone to be someone that is outspoken, to allow someone to be neutral and not kind of really jarred. And when we allow each other to be ourselves, and that when people are truly themselves, this is actually when we'll start to shift a lot more. Because at the minute there's so much control. Like, there's there's this ego that is trying to control everybody. It's like, this is my perspective and you need to follow it. And then they're saying, no, 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 this is my perspective and you're wrong and you need to follow it. And this fighting is what is, it basically, it shows you the polarity of the brain. It shows you this, like, that's right, this is wrong. It's basically, you're seeing what's going on inside people's heads. You're seeing it happen on a global stage on a planet.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of the tiny version of this big, huge, like, energetic web. And that's where mirroring, when you see what is going on outside of ourselves, and when you can start seeing that in yourself, that's when you can really start to grow and heal. Because when you realize that what you're seeing and that's annoying you over here, that you believe is completely separate from you, is actually a part of you, that's when you can really take off, and that's when you can really start to heal. And a lot of that comes with forgiveness. It comes with letting go. It comes with compassion. It comes with love. It comes with feeling all of these emotions. It comes with allowing yourself to feel angry. It comes with allowing yourself to feel fear, and know that the world's not going to end. And that's really my personal thing, I guess, really is that it's pushing people to feel all of these emotions. And it's a really tough experience for people, especially people who haven't had a lifetime of feeling emotions. To go from not feeling to go to feeling is really tough. It's tough for a sensitive person to live a life of feeling emotions, because you feel so much, you feel everything so amplified, but you're experienced at it. You've had a lot of practice. But for someone that's felt no emotions really, and then all of a sudden they're kind of blasted with this kind of smorgasbord of energy that we're feeling at the moment, it's a really tough experience for them. So and for us as sensitive people, it's to have compassion for those people, because it's a tough journey to go through that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I see we are, like,
I suppose you're right there. It's like we have had, like, when you are sort of born sensitive, it's like our whole lives we've had to sort of work on that. And if when you're not used to it, obviously that would be hard, to deal. Because I've also, just like you said there, noticed these intense emotions from everyone, and I'm like, can we all just be friends? You can think differently from me, and it doesn't matter, I will still love you. But it's like a lot of people are still stuck in that, like, no, you have to think what I think, otherwise my world falls apart, kind of thing. I mean,
it does.
I don't say
Yeah.
it loud, but I know that they kind of mean it. So
yeah, and that is true. And that is very much the kind of the life of kind of living in an ego, or living in kind of your spiritual self, is that you have these, like, falling apart. Like, we personify all of these stories, that we're the doctor or the healer or the spiritual person or the ambulance worker or the accountant. And so when someone questions that, and someone like they wiggle it and they try and break it apart, maybe not on purpose, is that we feel like we lose ourselves, and you feel really empty, and it feels horrendous. You actually feel like you're nothingness. And there's loneliness there, and there's some severe pain in that space. And it's really tough for people to go through. And this is what we're seeing. There's a lot of big egos, and it's a lot of people that are very connected to their story.
yeah.
And usually, and I've been through it as well, like when I couldn't go to school anymore, I that's what broke me apart the most. I think the fact that I had connected with this man, you're going to be a doctor one day, you're going to help lots of people, and all of a sudden within 1 year I couldn't do that anymore, and I couldn't handle it. I just broke into pieces. That this personification that I created was taken away from me, and I felt like the world was after me, and the world was ending, and why is life worth living, and blah 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 blah. But out of that big breaking apart, I found healing modalities that never would have come to me, that never would have been available. And then it's kind of a process of that. You create a little bit more of an ego about this new thing, and then that falls apart. And then you do this enough times, and all of a sudden you start to become that doesn't happen so much anymore.
Yeah, because, like, speaking of what the healing that you do, or when you help others, I've written down a couple of that are on your website, where I just would like you to explain a bit more what it is. So if anyone's wondering, distance energy healing, could you explain what that is first?
Yeah, for sure. So lots of people do this sort of work, but basically what it is usually people who are very good at this have had a lot of healing themselves. And what happens when you heal yourself a lot is that you kind of clear a lot of your vessel, like you make it a channel that is more conducive to flowing a lot more energy. So that doesn't mean that someone that hasn't had a lot of healing couldn't be a distance healer, but basically what happens is I kind of channel energy from source or different beings or reiki, whatever kind of is even Egyptian healers and stuff, that kind of energy channels through me and then it goes through to the person. So it's not so much that I am healing them, because really nobody heals anybody, by the way. We only heal ourselves. And the only reason that we may find someone that is a healer and we allow them to send energy to us, but that's still the person that is healing. It's them that did it. They allow that person to channel that energy to them. So I really like people to realize that if someone says they're a healer, that not get some sort of savior kind of personality about that person, because there's many healers on this planet, and I'm one of them, and you know I need to work, but at the same time there's many, but ultimately it's you, the person that's being healed, that is bringing this stuff to you. So when I work with someone, if they're very allowing, and they're usually, if they're very desperate, they're more open to more energy. And what happens usually is if people have emotional blocks or even psychic surgeries and stuff, like when we have injuries and stuff, it can kind of create areas of the body which are kind of misaligned, and actually energy doesn't flow very well and they become kind of blocked. Is that energy can kind of flow through me and it goes to these areas and it basically kind of dissolves blockages of maybe emotions or beliefs or actual kind of psychic or energetic injuries, as it were, and they kind of allow those spaces to open up. And when people are more open, they're able to channel more energy themselves without me, and in that case they can heal more. The other element of it is that it's very relaxing. And as humans, we know from a medical standpoint that when we're in a parasympathetic state, so like our rest and digest state, is that's when our body heals. So for some people, all I do with them is they're kind of stressed, and afterwards they feel incredibly relaxed. But as soon as they become relaxed, their body is allowed to heal itself. So a lot of it is allowing. It's kind of removing things and dissolving blockages and allowing them really to connect to source or spirit. Like some people have never connected, and then I can do a session with them, and then I speak to them 2 weeks later, and they're like, "Oh, I see love everywhere," and they get very connected to kind of something bigger than themselves. It opens their mind to a world that maybe didn't exist. And although it is invisible to most people, you can feel it. And ultimately humans believe stuff when they feel it. So if they feel fear, they believe it's real. If they feel happiness, they believe it's real. But if they feel this kind of flow of energy that completely kind of relaxes their whole body, some of them start to realize that, wow, this is a little weird maybe, but it's completely, I can feel this. This is real. If I can feel it, it's real. And within that, you can kind of start to realize that maybe spirit is real, and maybe there's energy is real. And it can, so for some people, they've been doing it for years. For them, it's kind of a modality that works very well. For other people, it can be the journey on a very different lifestyle. It can open their mind to a whole new world that didn't exist for them. So it's, and the process of it is I basically sit with someone over Zoom like this, and I basically send energy to them. I chat with them a bit. Sometimes I get messages that come through which are specific to them, and I will pass those messages on to them. It might be from their higher self, or sometimes ancestors or different beings and things. Sometimes I give those messages to people, and usually those messages are to help them remove or let go of some sort of blockage within themselves. A lot of the time it has to do with self-worth, maybe traumas that have happened through their life. A lot of people just want to be heard. They want to know that they're okay and that they're normal, and that everything about them is okay, and that they don't have to achieve anything. And a lot of the time, that's the message that kind of comes through, and it comes through in different ways. Sometimes I get ladies, sometimes that have had miscarriages, actually. Sometimes I get messages from the soul that was the baby that was miscarried, and that can be really so traumatizing for women. And a lot of the time, it makes me even cry when I'm chatting to them. But a lot of the time, that message that comes through is that it's okay. Like, I knew what was going on, and this was kind of part of your journey. And sometimes that just allows them to let go, that it wasn't them. It wasn't their fault that this baby didn't come through. And that's it. And it kind of allows people to allow and to heal. And it's a different experience for lots of people. Some people, it just doesn't work for them. It's just not their thing. They don't believe in it. It's not their thing. Other people, they just love it. They're just obsessed, and they love this feeling of energy flowing through. So it's just another process for other people to kind of, for me, I believe it's a way to connect to spirit. It's a way to heal, and it's a way to be okay with other things in life that maybe seem a little quirky, that aren't normal, people don't grown up thinking this is normal, and it creates a space that's okay for people to so that's my experience of it. So.
Yeah, it's like you said there, it's like I talk so much about like this stuff like spirituality and stuff, and I forget that other people think it's a bit weird sometimes. So I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna interview a guy that like channels an alien and stuff, like I'll say stuff like that, and they'll be like, what?
Yeah.
I just forget. I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. It's not common. So, but I think it's more and more people are opening up to it, and like you and I are quite open about it. But I think that I know a lot of people who just don't talk about it, but they talk to me about it, but they don't talk to anyone else about it because they're scared of being ridiculed. So.
And actually I have a story here, and I won't say names, but a lady that I know who she's a very she has a very strong psychic connection. She gets a lot of messages that come through that she gets a lot of people who passed away that try and talk to people through her all the time. And her daughter is incredibly she sees stuff all the time. She's constantly seeing she sees people, and she's seeing when she looks at me, she thinks I'm purple. She goes, you look like an alien. This is how she is, this little I think she's 7 or 8 now, but so that's her experience of life. And then her mum, we chatted about this, and she goes, yeah, I tell her not to tell too many people about this, because a lot of the children that she is around won't necessarily understand that, but some of them do. And this is where we're at this space where some children really have these gifts right now, and they are gifts, but they're also really challenging when they seem like they're weird. Yeah. If you feel like you're that different and that they're wrong in some way, or that it's frowned upon, is that doesn't make it easy for a person to grow up with that gift. It can make them feel separate and maybe different from other people, but they're still a human being. Yeah. And they have these gifts coming through. So I think, like you said, it's becoming more commonplace now, and more people are even open to it, or they're allowing people to be a bit quirky. They may not believe in it. They're like, oh, that person believes in this. But instead of trying to crush them anymore, they allow them just to be. They may not talk to them, but they allow them to be. Yeah. And that's a big step in consciousness, because at one time on this planet, if you didn't read this book that comes from this place, if you didn't read that, then there was something wrong with you. And if you had anything different, then basically you were kind of ostracized. Yeah. And that's changing. Even people I know now that are very have a very religious background, are actually, more and more of them are more open to allow people to not have a religious background. They're like, well, I don't believe in what they're talking about, but they're not trying to crush them anymore. They're not attacking them as much as there was. So there's not so much fighting within this. And I think we're starting to realize that all elements of spirituality and religion all point to the same place, that they're all signposts pointing back to some form of higher self. And whether you believe there's thousands and billions of them, or if you think there's only one, you have some commonality that you believe that there's something bigger than you. Yeah. And when you have that commonality, there's room for conversation. You may have different beliefs, like you may believe in one God, I might believe in 15, but we believe in some sort of God. So between the two of us, there's some sort of conversation that we can have now. And I'm seeing personally that that's becoming more commonplace. Not everywhere, but it's becoming more open as well. You're seeing that it's more open between people. And this is the beautiful thing I'm seeing on this planet, is that people are becoming more open to other people. They're becoming more compassionate. And when we see a whole planet is suffering, everybody realizes that everybody's suffering. And when you know that everybody's suffering, you start to believe, and you start to know that we're all the same. We all are suffering. Lots of people are losing jobs. Lots of people are having family members die. And lots of people having mental problems now, and there's lots of suicides and all of these really just horrendous things that are going on. But we're finding commonality within that. That, you know what, I had a family member that committed suicide, and then I meet someone else that's also their family member has committed suicide. And we may not be people that were friends before, but we have this common conversation now. And the terrible things that happen in life, I personally believe if we can make great things come out of them, then that we've really done a service for this planet. So for all the awful stuff that's going on right now, is I really urge people to create amazing things from it. That we can't change the past, but we can create wonderful things that come from these lessons that we're learning. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I went off on a big tangent there.
Yeah,
Sorry
no,
about
no,
that.
no. I think it's great. It's great. I love hearing it, and it's. I love hearing your take on it, and I also kind of see the whole. I see it like a huge spring clean now, like where everything's like coming to the surface, and we're purging and we're uniting in our
Mhm.
like just like you said there. Like I understand. Like I think people are starting to understand that like we're all suffering, but we all really want to be loved and heard and
Yeah.
seen. And you said something earlier that I can't remember what it was now, but never mind. But so many thoughts. I'm like, I just had one more question there with when you channel, and you said you sometimes channel different entities or sort of alien
Yes.
beings.
Yeah.
Is there a specific, like, do you channel all kinds of alien beings, or do you channel, is it a specific, like,
So I'm still learning on some of these ones that I'm connected with. Like, I don't always learn about them. I've had a bit of a different experience. Like other people I know that have similar experiences. Some of them are very specific. Like whoever they're chatting with or whatever is flowing through them will tell them that I'm from here. This is what I do. This is what my name is. And by the way, all this could be made up. This is I say this is my truth, but it doesn't mean that this is all true. Like we could, in 2 years' time, we might learn that none of this is true. But I like to put that out there because nothing is set in stone on this planet. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I got excited
you
there.
okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Um, so so I have some friends that they kind of are very much told who they're maybe speaking to. With me, it hasn't really been that way. For me, it was very much like I would be very drawn to maybe certain planets or maybe certain types of things. And the more that I kind of would look in those places, I'd start to find out about different sort of possible beings that come from that place. And then as soon as I kind of, part of me was like, something would kind of come in. It was almost like a knowing. I was like, oh, I think that's this type of being. And then plunk, I would feel like this big clunk in my body, and it would fill with all this energy, and it was always this feeling of really much of joy. And I would always get this feeling of like, yeah, you got it. You did it on your own. You found out who we are. And some of those are like Arcturian type energies. Some of them are, there's like feline races that I kind of have some connections with. There's a lot of Egyptian energy I have connections with. Indian seers and prophets and stuff like that. That energy is coming through at the moment. I'm getting a lot of that, actually, kind of these masters and sort of saints and stuff that were from India. And that's a really wonderful experience as well. And so it's, a lot of it is choice as well, is that people forget that we have choice on this planet and free will. And that really anywhere that I look, if I look hard enough and with enough intention, you'll get the connection. So a lot of the time I might be sitting here, and I do have certain beings that, there's 12 of them actually, particular ones that have been with me since I was born. And they've been with me the whole time, but they're kind of silent until I start to realize they're there. And when I do, then all of a sudden I start to get other thoughts and other emotions and different perspectives on life. And I'm more compassionate towards different things and stuff. And that's kind of been my journey. So I kind of, it's like a constant amazement almost half the time that I'm like, oh, I think I've got a connection to this right now. And that's kind of how it flows through. And it depends a bit on who I talk to as well, like what their connections are, what their kind of paths are and stuff. And if they have a very deep connection with the Himalayas, then maybe that's something that will kind of come through within our conversation. It's interesting. And I tend to like to be open to lots of things and to not be stuck on one thing, because I find I get kind of bored quite easily as a human. So I really like variety. So I find it really amazing to have all of these new connections and all of this information, and other people, they just connect with one type of being and they kind of learn that world in depth. I kind of tend to touch on lots of different stuff, and so yeah, so those are some of the stuff. But at the minute, a lot of Arcturian, a lot of feline energy, a lot of Egyptian still, and India. That's kind of lots of seers and saints from India. That's kind of mostly what I'm bringing through at the moment, but it changes all the time. So.
It's so cool. Like I've been quite honest in when I've sat in meditation recently that I really want to connect with my starseed family, but they're being very quiet. So I can't seem to connect. But I don't know. Maybe I'll contact you sometime soon and maybe you can see.
Yeah, maybe we can see what comes through.
Yeah.
And there's also as well, there's like direct connections to kind of like, there's a lot of seventh dimensional type of energy that I connect with. I think that's maybe where a big part of my soul is. I don't really I get feelings from there. So it's all very feeling stuff. Like it's not messages as such. It's like if I'm going in the right direction, I get very strong feelings. If I go in a different direction, they kind of get taken away. So they all communicate in different ways. But what I'm finding is I'm being pushed more to feeling and knowing.
Yeah.
Less so about like visions that come through that show me a picture, or like words in my head that are like, you need to do this. It's more about feeling that like, this feels like I should go walk down the street right now, and I should maybe go and shake hands with that person. And that takes a lot of confidence in yourself and these messages and your intuition that it's true. But you know, time after time, you take that walk down the road and you say hi to someone, and you're like, you find out something that you never knew was going to happen. So it's different for everybody. Everybody's experience is a different one, and for your own, actually, the message that's coming through for you is the less you try, the easier that connection is going to come together. So the more you want, because if you want that connection, it means that it's basically is it okay to say this, by the way?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, sorry,
I'm an open book. Like,
and this is actually, it's a good message to lots of people, but the more that if we're desperate to connect to this group or this thing or that thing, we're basically advertising to the universe that we want. And when we advertise want, we get more want. We don't get the connection. So
the law of attraction, hey?
Yeah, basically. So when we have the intention that I want to connect with my starseed family, but in part of us just gives up, and that we kind of realize that it'll come when it's supposed to come, and that I'm okay with it being tomorrow. I'm okay with it never happening. When you get into that space of kind of present moment, that's when you're more likely to get the connection. So that's what kind of came through, is to be excited about it and learn about these sorts of things, but not to have too much weight that something is missing from your life without it. Because if you have that feeling of missing, you're just going to get more of that feeling of missing until one day you just give up and you're like, I don't care anymore, and then boom, it will come through and you'll get the message.
Yeah.
That's usually what I find happens quite often. So
yeah, no, thank you so much for that. It's so funny how you say that, because it's so like law of attraction. Like I talk a bit about that, and I mean, it's so frustrating because it's like, yeah, you try and let go, but you want it so much, and it's like, why is it not here now? Like, and I have like I can't say. Like I want things to happen fast. I'm just generally like that. And I'm like, can I just chill out and just like, just, you know, but yeah, I'm definitely going to back off and just allow.
Yeah,
So,
if you can, but you know that trait that you have, I have it too. And actually, I was chatting to lots of people recently that is this impatience. And you know, it gets beaten up a bit. They're like, oh, you're not patient, especially in spirituality. You need patience. But you know, there's a lot of benefits to impatience as well. Is that stuff happens really quickly, and things get done really quickly with impatience as well. So it's not all bad. So this is this dichotomy that we always have to live in. It's almost like living in this place of patience and impatience. Because when I was meditating all the time for like 4 hours a day and stuff, and 5 hours, and I got into such this place of Zen that I didn't care about anything. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to help anybody. I was so in Zen that I had no motivation. And it wasn't until I kind of took back a little bit more of my impatience and this kind of wanting stuff all now that I started to do stuff, and I started to have more joy with life, because I like doing stuff. And I had to make peace with, you can be spiritual and do stuff at the same time. You can be a human and be kind of have godlike energies on earth at the same time. It's not one or the other. You don't just become a human or just be some sort of Zen Buddha. You can be both.
Yeah.
And I think as humanity as a whole, I think the mashing of these two together now is, I think, where humanity's going. That you can be kind of this human that has a job and a family and stuff, and you can also be really spiritual at the same time. You can have deep connections to different planets and all these different things at the same time as having a job in the library. These two are not kind of separate from each other. And I think now that's what's happening, because I know a lot of people that are very spiritual, like, oh, I give away all my stuff and I meditate all day and I don't care about money. And it's great. I've been there, but it's a very slow process in that place. Stuff doesn't always change that quickly. Whereas the human side of us, which wants stuff tomorrow, we want it all really quickly. When you combine that with kind of the peace of spirituality and allowing, you can do some really amazing things, and you get to experience really amazing things. And so those parts of yourself are really amazing. And I just want you not to be hard on yourself for those, because I think they're gifts.
Thank you. Feels good to hear. So I've stolen your time for an hour now, so I'm gonna
sure.
love you and leave you. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's just been really interesting having you here and talking about your wisdom. And yeah, I'm really, really pleased. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. No, that's awesome. And I always keep watching your breath work and stuff online and stuff, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk. As you can tell, sometimes I like talking a lot. So sometimes I'm very quiet. Other times you can't shut me up. So, I have a lot of fun doing these podcasts and stuff. They're great. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, have a great day. See ya.
You too. Bye.